Welcome to the Sex Magic Podcast, where we explore the connections between sexuality and spirituality, the various cultures and traditions of sex magic, and conversations about everything in between, led by a coven of curious modern witches. If you'd like to follow us on social media, our Instagram is Sex Magic Podcast, our website is sexmagicpodcast.com, and if you want to send us an email, sexmagicpodcast@gmail.com. Hello, lovers and friends. We are back for a very special episode. This is your Samhain edition podcast episode, and we are all here. We are all met, all of your podcast co-hosts, and today we are just going to be chatting all things Samhain. We've taken some of your questions, and we're really excited to have a conversation aligned with probably a witch's favorite seasonal pagan rites.
I think so.
I don't know about you, but I'm starting to get into the spooky vibes.
I'm definitely feeling the spooky vibes, but not the spooky weather, because this is my first year back in a long time being in the southern hemisphere. So it is springtime vibes, which is confusing because it feels like Marbon energy, but it's not. So it's confusing.
Yeah, maybe like you'll feel more integrated after a year or two, but are you going to celebrate Beltane or are you going to do Samhain?
No, I'll definitely celebrate Samhain. I mean, I grew up here, so I'm used to doing this my whole life, but it always felt kind of strange to me that as like you feel this like intuitive inward kind of hermit energy turning vibes, that it's like beautiful summer and everyone's on the beach and barbecuing and wants to hang out. And I'm like, no, I'm reflecting on my year. So I liked being in the States because I liked the weather, but in California, it's kind of much of a muchness anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just going to find the spooky weather inside ourselves.
Yes, it is an internal alchemy of spooky weather.
It is.
Our cold, cold hearts.
I feel like especially too in LA, we had all the crazy like thunder and lightning.
Yes.
Oh, it was
man.
very spooky.
So
about that.
A few of my friends put together like a series of scary movie nights for October.
Yes.
And we had our first one on the evening that it was raining and there were thunderstorms and lightning. So we all were watching Sleepy Hollow, which is the amazing Johnny Depp Headless Horseman movie.
Yes.
And it was my first time ever seeing it, but it was like the lightning was striking and we were all just screaming and it was so much fun.
You just needed like an axe murderer to barge in and like scare the shit out of you all. It would have been perfect.
It would have been perfect. Maybe you could come
on your
next
definition
time.
of perfect.
Yeah, I bought tickets to go to like this elaborate haunted house thing in Thousand Oaks that's supposed to be pretty scary. So I'm actually a weenie when it comes to those things. I love scary stuff.
Really?
I don't know how I feel about being inside of the scary thing, but I'm going to put on a brave face. And
You're a Halloweenie.
I am.
I wouldn't have expected that from you.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I mean, I'm still going. I still like it, but yeah, I'm definitely going to be like on edge, holding on to people.
I would have expected you to like love all things scary for some reason.
I do like it. I just don't know if I like watching scary things. I don't know if I want
The immersion.
Scary people chasing me.
That's fair.
Oh, it's one of those.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's one of those.
Wow. Yeah. Those
I
are.
always wonder how many people get clocked in the face by accident in them. Like if someone jumps you, gives you a surprise, and you just whirl around and smack them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sure that some situations have gone down.
Seems high risk to me. I wouldn't want to work there.
I know quite a few people in the town I grew up in that work there because I'm very involved in like the theater community in my hometown. And I definitely have heard some fun stories. So, but yeah, I definitely have started to feel like a trickle of the autumnal energy, and it's so fun to have this marker that really is, I feel like, the descent into darkness. Like we have the fall equinox, which is like, hello, just a warning, it's going to get dark soon and you're going to turn inward and reflect and connect with your ancestors maybe. And then someone comes around, it's like, game on, let's go.
I definitely feel a shift in the air for sure. I feel like I'm a tree that's just starting to kind of shed its leaves, and it feels really, really good. It's like cutting off like all your dead split ends off of your hair so that it can, be healthy. And I feel like I'm just releasing a lot of old habits and kind of unhealthy cycles that I've been holding on to for a while. So it's nice. I like it.
It sort of almost feels like, for me at least, that this dark half of the year is almost like a long-term full moon energy of like reflection and introspection and releasing.
Yeah, definitely. I love connecting with the correspondences of the wheel of the year for Samhain and for any of the Sabbats. And Samhain is, if we're aligning with like the life cycle, it's the crone. And so I really love connecting with the crone energy this time of year. And I feel like she's the keeper of the ancestral realm as well, in the spirit realm.
And she doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess maybe we've done a few episodes on Samhain, but maybe we could just like share what Samhain is, why it's important, why everyone's talking about it. And then we can kind of go a little deeper in how we can play with this energy.
What's Samhain and what does it mean to you? I feel like for me, I follow more of my lineage, which is Irish, Gaelic, Celtic energies, which I believe their interpretation of Samhain is pretty aligned with like the collective understanding, being that it's the day that the veil, well, it's like the day, night, and next day in Irish culture, that the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. So there's like a lot of specific traditions that we do and practice. And it's interesting to me how those traditions have gotten just like socialized and kind of commercialized over the years, but that's still the same practices more or less, but they don't have the same like resonance and intention anymore.
Yeah, I believe that Samhain, at least the name Samhain, really did originate from Celtic, Gaelic. That is the true root of at least Samhain in that form. But I mean, so many cultures just connect to the energy of death and release and surrender and connecting to the spirit realm. We have South American traditions. And I think it is this way because it is seasonal and it is earth magic. And so I think Samhain is an invitation to connect with your inner darkness and with the themes of darkness. And one of those themes that's so prevalent for this pagan rite is death and the other realm and connecting to the spirit realm, the other world, portals, all of that magic.
Yeah, one of the things that I love in Irish tradition around Samhain is that you make you set out a plate with like food and everything on it, but like with a place setting for particular ancestors and loved ones who've crossed over that you want to honor. And then you have your dinner with their empty place, hoping that they have what nourishment they need. The belief is that they come through to warm themselves by the living, which I just love the visual of. And then you put the plate outside your house, like on your porch or usually by one of the doors or all the doors. And it's thought that the like leftover food, because, I don't think most of the time the food just magically disappears as the ancestors eat it. And so they put that food out by the doors to sort of like appease. It's like an offering, but with the energy of appeasing the like fae folk, because they believe that's with the veil being lifted, the like mischievous spirits come out. And so hopefully if they come into your house to fuck with you, essentially, they do a lot of things like swap your kids for changelings, and they're tricky fellows. So they think they'll get like distracted and eat all the food, and then they'll pass on to another house. So that's a tradition I like doing still.
You really do have to appease the fae. You don't want to fuck with the fae.
They're mischievous.
They really are.
And that's also why that they would do, in traditional times, they would carve. Actually, I think it wasn't so much pumpkins as it was like turnips and more things like that. I mean, pumpkin's kind of like a high commodity item. But they would carve faces, and they would paint their faces and dress up in costumes that were usually, I think, like animals more than, and monsters more than like, now costumes can be anything, it could be a costume of another person. But like if you did a costume of another person in that time, it'd be awful, because like then the fae would take the wrong person. But the idea is to trick them so that they wouldn't take you, which people still do, but in a different way.
Yeah, one of the things that I really love in my research is that mumming, which is another word for dressing up in costume and performing stories, predominantly with men acting as the actors, just probably because this was old times and men were actors then. But mumming was a tradition long ago for Samhain. So we've been dressing up for this holiday since its origin, which I just find to be so incredible. And I wonder if just this theme of liminality is present in that ritual, as well as becoming someone else, and, the idea of spirits as well. And I love that we can continue to practice that with, perhaps a different intention. But, something I want to do this year, and I think I have done the past few years when I've chosen my costume, is to choose a persona, or to choose an energy, a character that I seek to embody within my own life, or just like a part of my spirit, my psyche that I don't usually get to connect to, and having that be permission. And I feel like, to quote Mean Girls, like, this is the one night, so we do that, as well as like allowing maybe a more like sultry part of our persona to come out and wear the sexy costume. But, I think it's such a fun invitation to think about what part of your spirit, your psyche, needs to come out to play.
Makes me mull over my costume for this year.
Yeah, no, me too. I normally do like a badass sci-fi heroine, like ninja type person, but I feel like I've exhausted everything up to now. So this year I'm being like a really, really scary costume. I'm being one of the scary nurses from Silent Hill. I don't know if you've seen like the movies or the video games, but like the face is all like warped and bandaged. And I got this like really, really scary mask, and I showed all my friends, and they're like so not into it. Except my boyfriend is into it. He's like, that looks pretty cool. So yeah, I guess I'm bringing out my scary side, my demonic side.
Release the monster. I love it.
Seriously.
Yeah, last year I was Lilith, and I had been working with Lilith, and I continue to as well. And it was really fun to dress up and honor her. And a few years ago, I was Freya. So I feel like I have this trend of embodying the deities that I fangirl over.
I love that. I was thinking of Lilith this year because I'm doing a devotional to her.
Ooh.
But I don't know. I don't often really dress up.
Yes.
I like to dress up anytime, but I have a bratty part of me that doesn't like doing things when they're like what other people like the obligations. Like I never do anything fun and festive or party on like New Year's Eve. It's like, it's too expected.
You're the rebel.
Just a brat.
So yeah, I'm curious, how are we practicing Samhain in the past? How have you practiced? And maybe what do you want to do this year?
I normally follow some of the like traditions that I mentioned of my ancestors. One of the things that I really like doing is setting up an altar to my past loves who have passed into a different plane of existence, and also like general ancestors who I don't know yet. And one of the ways that I like light candles for them in the evening and speak to them and cook for them and make dishes that they like and just really try to spend time with them and honor them. And one of the ways that I'm doing that a bit differently this year, or that I've been preparing for it this year, is doing ancestry research.
I love that. Are you using a certain site? I'm very curious how you're.
But I won't name it because they're not our sponsor.
Okay, just tell me later.
Yeah. I'm doing that, but I'm also like talking to my grandmother. It was really interesting. So I won't say what town it is from our privacy, but we just got approved for a house that we're moving to in a very historic town. And I was telling my grandmother about it, and she told me, oh, actually you had ancestors out there. So that just sent me into this like whole spiral of like who, what, where. And as it turns out, my ancestor particularly who was there, her name was Mary, but her middle name was Isabel, which is very close to my name. And obviously had the same last name at birth. So that was pretty trippy. And then the more I read about her, the more tripped out I was. Like, just everything is so accurate in comparison to her and I. Like, we had the same wedding flowers, just like a lot of weird coinkydinks. And I think it's interesting that I was compelled to move to the town that she was from. So that sent me on like a big ancestry spiral.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm going to be putting her on our altar this year. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Really exciting. And like her nickname, she went by, her nickname wasn't her name. And that name, the name that, there's two different names, a couple of names my mom was going to call me before I was born. And if you like mix two of them together, it's exactly that name. So that's kind of interesting too.
Wow.
So I'm excited to like also research some of the sites where like she was married and where she lived. And apparently the house she lived in, you used to be able to go and visit, and there were still pictures of her on the wall, but it just got sold to like a private party. But I'm going to email them and say, hey, can I come check it out before you like move in? Because they haven't closed on the sale yet. Also, I want to like, is there a way I could get the title for that? I'm like, I'm the rightful heir.
Seriously.
I wish.
Well, I'm curious how that's going to unfold.
I'll keep you posted.
Keep us updated. I usually always just do something really easy and short and sweet. I like to keep it simple. And I think this might just be like the third year or so that I've been celebrating. I didn't even really know about this until I learned from you all in the podcast. So I consider myself a newbie still. I was like that girl who was like, Sam Hain. Yeah, that was me.
We've all been there.
I know. So usually I'll just make like a little crystal grid or set up like a kind of like altar with fall items, and then do like a little bit of divination. So like a simple tarot spread, just to like connect to the spiritual realm, to connect to my higher self. And yeah.
Beautiful. What about for you, Tosca?
So I did something really exciting a few weeks ago. My mom and I went on a little mother-daughter trip, and I had the idea to do a spell with my mom.
Ooh.
For the very first time we did magic together. And my mom is just very down. She, has been very exploratory of her own spirituality her whole life. And, so much of my beliefs probably are rooted from, her open-mindedness. So we did a spell in the forest, and this Airbnb that we got, it was so incredible. It had a circle made of stone beneath cedar tree. So there was a circle like ready for us to do magic. And I was just like, oh my God, it's going down. I brought my cauldron. And the spell that I wanted to do was to break family curses and to heal our ancestral lineage. Just because, my family, we have certain patterns that repeat themselves and things that I really don't want to carry into any future generations when I have children. And I just thought it was like such a gift to share that with my mom. And I know she feels the same and wanting to heal and to move forward. We wrote down like all of the things we were ready to release and the curses we wanted to break. And we went outside and the cauldron was lit. I had corresponding incense and candles and all the things. But it was so funny. Like I thought that things would go like as plans, like it was going to go easy. But like that is, it's serious magic. If you're breaking a family curse, it's not going to go how you planned it. And of course, learned that in the moment. But it was really interesting what came through as we were doing this spell were certain fears of mine that manifested during this magic. I was concerned that the fire was going to be too big. It would disrupt our Airbnb host's like house that was just down the way. And I was getting really like anxious about it. And my mom did something that was very like aligned with one of her patterns, which was like kind of being a little impulsive. And she just threw her little paper in the cauldron and it made a really big fire. So it was just like, oh my gosh. And then we had this shared moment where it was a realization that the spell was illuminating what we needed to work on. And my fears surrounding lack of control and all of that was just coming through. And so it was almost that during this spell, we were able to have illumination surrounding what we needed to continue working on. But I definitely have felt a shift, and it's even kind of come through in my family already, which is really interesting.
Oh, wow.
So because it was such an intense spell, I wanted to continue that through Samhain and to connect to my ancestors that are no longer here and to leave offerings, maybe make some food from recipes that were handed down, and just really slow down and kind of move at earth pace. Allow myself to really receive and not try to rush any insight, but to work with certain Samhain correspondences that I love to connect to, like bones and black candles and root vegetables, really grounding foods and drinks, maybe some divination as well. So yeah, that's my big story.
That's amazing. And I love when spells take us on the exact journey that we need but didn't know.
Absolutely.
I love your mom. She's so great.
Yeah. And she also is okay with me sharing that. So, just wanted to give a heads up to our listeners.
What's your mom's sign, if you're comfortable sharing, and no worries if not?
Pisces.
I was thinking maybe Aquarius, but yeah, that makes sense.
But she has some Aries tendencies, doesn't she?
She does. She's very close to Aries, and she's trying to get her birth certificate right now so she can get her passport. And so I'm really hoping there is a time on there because we don't know much else. But I would love to read my mom's chart.
Yeah, whenever I ask my parents, they're just like, I don't know what time I was born. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of call towards ancestral healing and connection is very aligned with Samhain too. Like another thing I've been working on as part of my kind of like Samhain energies are I'm going through as I'm learning about my ancestry, I'm doing as much of their natal charts as I can. And which is pretty scattered. And I want to get like a huge whiteboard or an enormous piece of paper or something and kind of like, or even honestly, like my Capricorn place is going through an Excel spreadsheet
Yes.
that I want to kind of like plan out and like be able to visually see like who is what and where are the connections and kind of spider energy, Samhain, weave it all together as well.
Ooh, I love that. That is so cool.
It's pretty interesting too. And like, it's interesting to see how like on one side of my family, there's a certain amount of things. And then the other side, it's like pretty much every man in my, on that bloodline is like a fire sign. Even those that like married into our family, we're like, what?
That's incredible.
We love some fire energy, these ladies. Ooh.
I mean, can you blame them?
Definitely some fire signs.
Yeah, it's interesting also to think about how the ancestors want to be reached as well. Mm-hmm. Something that came through for me is to sing for my ancestors. Mm-hmm. Someone from my herbalist school made a really beautiful song that I will try to find and share with everyone. But it actually like starts out with the lyric, I sing for my ancestors, deep down they dance for us, gathering the bones, singing ancient songs. And oh man, it's so beautiful. I'll see if I can find it and share it because we used to sing that together in class. But
oh wow, like a duet or like a round?
Like a whole group, a whole circle. We would all sing that together. Awesome. It was really beautiful. But yeah, I think it's interesting to think about like what your ancestors loved and how you can do that for them. And it's lovely to leave like offerings, but maybe certain ancestors want to see certain parts of you come through. And it's just really lovely to connect with that. And if you're not close with your ancestors, you can also connect with the geography or the terrain that your ancestors are rooted from, and to connect with that land as well. Because I know some of us do have difficult relationships with family, and the earth is always a lineage we can connect to as well. So certain foods or stones or plants that grow in places that your families are from is another way to connect with the season.
That's an important reminder. Mm-hmm. I feel like I love to connect to my ancestors mainly through cooking. Mm-hmm. Like to cook the recipes, and I don't know, I feel like when I eat the foods that I cooked for them, I feel like I can really experience them. And I also like to do it through gardening. And I mentioned this, I think, on an episode, but when I did some skinning of an animal, I guess trigger warning, skinning of an animal, I just knew how to do it. And I had never learned or taken a class or really seen anybody do it. But it was like my hands were moving just with a knowing. And that was really cool. So I also think, and I remember one of the two of you, I forget which is, but one of the two of you did axe throwing and was really freakishly good at it, right?
Oh, we both did axe throwing.
Yeah, it was for Shady's birthday.
Yeah, that's right, Tosca. You were really, really good at it, right?
Yeah.
She was. I was one of the worst ones. I was just throwing the axe at the floor at that point. I was like, I know what I need to do, but it's going against the ground.
I feel like sometimes when we do new activities though that we've never done before, we can be surprised by our skill at them. And I think for me, that can be a connection to our ancestors. Like maybe Tosca, some of your ancestors did axe throwing, and a lot of mine did skinning, apparently.
Absolutely. I mean, I have lineage in Denmark, so Norse magic is very prevalent for me, which is why I love Freya and Norse shamanism. But yeah, the axe throwing is definitely some Valkyrie shit.
Yeah.
Well, my ancestors must have been hula hoopers or something, because that's the only thing that I'm just randomly a pro at. So
I love it.
You were doing the staff for a while, right?
Yeah, how's that been going?
I feel like I just pick up all these hobbies and then like just abandon them flippantly. So maybe I'll make my way back to the staff at some point. But that was interesting for me because just the mind body connection with all the martial arts stuff, it just showed me how much my connection needed work. Because you do have to be very present with like all the movements and motions. And I felt like I was massively overthinking things and couldn't even like feel where certain things were. So it was a good exercise for me. I feel like all of the things that I'm drawn to, like the badass sports and really active things like that, I'm not naturally good at, but I want to be. So I keep trying.
What is it, 10,000 hours until
like
you
that.
are a master?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's also a great reminder as well. The body is also a theme of Samhain as well, in that like it aligns with the root and coming back to the root and healing the root, which, I feel like is our foundation, and tending to our bodies can also be a theme this season, and something I wanted to talk about, which is, perhaps aligned with, tending to the body, but also aligned with some spirit work as well, is blood magic.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a few of our listeners reach out and ask us about blood magic and how that weaves into sex magic. So I wanted to make sure that we had a little convo about that, and maybe you can incorporate some blood magic for Samhain. And I think Bella and we both practice a certain tradition of offering our blood to the earth.
Ooh. Yeah, it's such a potent medicine. It was introduced to me through a womb shaman that I work with, where you give offering of your blood to the earth every cycle for 9 cycles. And it's a gestation of anything that you would like to create or process. And I did mine around healing my womb, and it was really, really powerful. And then also in like a green witch kind of setting, you can use diluted blood to make your house plant. And sorry, I should have been more specific. I'm talking specifically about menstrual blood. There's lots of different types of blood magic. I'm talking specifically menstrual. You can use your menstrual blood to incredibly nourish plants. It's night and day.
Absolutely. It really is. And, there's just so many nutrients in our menstrual blood. And I think that symbolically, that's such a beautiful reminder that when we release, we also nurture to create new life. And that is part of the cycle, that we have to allow death to be present in our lives, or else we are not in harmony. We're not in balance. And it's really beautiful as well to release shame surrounding our blood. As folks who bleed with the moon, there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do to love our monthly blood and to embrace it, to not feel shame when we spot accidentally and bleed through our underwear, or we have sex and blood happens to make an appearance. So I think that blood magic is a really powerful way to heal our relationship with our menstrual blood as well.
You play with fire, you get burned sometimes. It's no big deal. Yeah, I really, really love blood magic, and specifically menstrual magic. And there's just so many different like avenues to explore. I appreciate you presencing the shame part, because I feel like I've been so in this magic that I actually like kind of forgot that some people still sort of feel that around their bleed.
I know. I still hear people saying it's gross, it's embarrassing. And it's, it's sad. Yeah. It's an experience we 50%, 55% of the population share. And it's, we should celebrate.
Yeah, it's also like the primordial magic and ability for all creation.
Mm-hmm.
What on earth? How on earth could you find shame in that? Unless you're patriarchy twisting magic into horror.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like the only time that I can think of, at least off the top of my head, where people are bleeding but not, injured or unwell in any way. It's like blood as power, blood as creation and life force and possibility, and oh man, blood as cleansing,
Yes.
And that death cycle, I get really lit up when I talk about this. But like that death cycle of like the potentiality in the womb. And a lot of people get PMS and PMDD, and they're very significant, severe. And I'm sorry if you suffer from that. I certainly have. And obstetricians and gynecologists in general are very dismissive. And one of the things I like to really think about is, yes, some of those things can be, psychological and hormonal and chemical, and also maybe, and I don't mean this in a dismissive way, but rather an empowering one, that maybe it feels sad for your sweet ovaries and womb who have set out this beautiful, fertile bed, and then it's no one comes to the party, they want to make a little baby. They don't care what your desires are. And, maybe they feel sad and your body feels sad, but it doesn't. So sometimes we can feel emotionally like happy or relieved to get our bleed.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's sadness associated with it. And I wonder how much the body just feels sad sometimes too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if either of you are comfortable saying, I've never dabbled with ingesting my menstrual blood. I know many witches do and many humans do. I haven't personally. I've used it before as face masks, and every single time I do, the next day people that see me will go, wow, you look amazing. What's happened? You're glowing. And I'm like, it's that stem cell, baby. I like mix it into a rose clay mask, and I've never ingested it. I've never felt called to. But I was thinking about this actually today, because we're staying with my mom at the moment while we wait to be able to move into our new house. And she has chickens, 13 chickens, such a witchy number of chickens to have. And their eggshells are feeling a little bit thin lately. So I ground up one of their shells and I mix it with their food, which is recommended, not just like me being a Yahoo. And they, I don't know that they particularly noticed or didn't notice, but honestly, within a day or two, their shells started getting so thick and healthy.
Wow.
I was thinking about that this morning, and then I was just thinking, this isn't a well-formulated thought, but I was just thinking, isn't it interesting that the thing that they're creating is to do with their menstrual blood, like that's their menses kind of, and it does nourish them on a fundamental level to like and also really nourishes chickens to eat like cooked or raw eggs. It's really interesting to me. I don't have a formulated, concise way to end that story.
Yeah, no, I would be very curious to ask some midwives about that. I was initially going to say, ask my doctor friend, but I'm guessing that he probably won't know, or have a different kind of answer, very Western medicine answer. But I have never tried that, though. I'd definitely be game. Sounds cool.
Same. I'd be open to it.
Blood is sexy to me. So hot. But one of the ways that I practice sex magic with my menstrual blood is I anoint parts of my body with my menstrual blood, and oftentimes I will paint sigils onto my body, and of course charge those sigils with my intention. So if I am, seeking to cast a spell for X, Y, and Z, then I charge that sigil aligned with that intention and then paint it on my skin with my own blood. And I know that a lot of sex magic does incorporate menstrual blood. So, yeah.
Super turned on by that idea.
You're welcome to try.
I'm going to. It sounds amazing. Yeah, I just feel like it's such potent medicine and magic. And I just get really excited to talk about it.
I shared a blood magic spell on the podcast Instagram, maybe last Samhain actually. And I did share with our followers how to maybe use blood if you do not menstruate. And one of the ways that I do that, if I'm not bleeding, and of course, this is trigger warning, needles, and also I am highly encouraging extreme precaution. But I have partaken in needle play. That's one of the fetishes that I like to explore. And, you can explore needle play and, pierce certain parts of your skin. I like to use my thighs because it's very fatty. It's not like super muscly. You want to make sure that it's not like somewhere in your body that is very thin. So, but oftentimes I'll get like a drop of blood and I can safely use a little bit of that blood to anoint a candle or to incorporate into some other form of magic. But, I do want to encourage everyone to find some resources, educate yourself if you are intrigued by the thought of needle magic, piercing magic. It is a wonderful kink to explore if you are interested.
That's such a good idea. And for folks that want to connect with menstrual magic and cycle magic that don't bleed, you can coordinate it with the moon. Because she will follow you. She will help you follow her beautiful cycles. And moon cycles correspond with menstrual cycles also. So you can do some cycle syncing. It doesn't really matter if you bleed or not. Inclusive magic. I had a rainbow, imagine that.
Yeah. Okay, so we asked our followers to send us some questions, and they did. And I want to make sure that we get to them before we wrap up this episode. So we will rapid fire answer. We have a question from Gypsy Bader. Any tips for a baby witch for this holiday?
Listen to this episode.
Yeah, I would say don't feel overwhelmed. Choose maybe one or two things and allow yourself to really experience them and add something new every year.
Yep. When in doubt, just follow your intuition, especially at this time.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like with magic, with BDSM, with all these things, folks tend to get excited and they dive all the way in, and there's always time and space to learn more. So pick one thing that's kind of intriguing you or giving you a little shiver in your lower stomach and just explore it gently at your own pace. Even just a little light a candle for someone that you love or something that you love that doesn't exist on this plane anymore.
Yeah. Our next question is from Dissa Bethany, who is also a sexologist. She wanted to share. She asks, how do I bring spooky energy to my fucking? Such a fun question.
I like
that's
red
hot.
light bulb. Red light bulb.
Ooh,
I like
red light bulb.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so simple.
Right?
Mood lighting.
Yeah, that's a good one. I also would say invite a deity, god or goddess or ancestor or archetype to come have sex with you. That's one of my favorite.
I love
things that. Or ghost. You can do ghost sex too, but it's a bit safer, I think, to dabble in with archetypes and deities. They can be a bit more gentle on you.
I would say allow yourself to personify an inner monster.
Ooh.
And maybe that's something demonic, or maybe that's something ghouly. Maybe it's Bigfoot. Who knows? Allow yourself to really play and see how your voice changes. Allow a release of sound. See how your movements change. I would also say that Bad Dragon is a fantastic sex toy company.
Yeah.
And they have like dragon tail and very monstrous sex toys, which I mean, yeah, yes, please.
For penetrating and for being penetrated.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You've got the whole thing, the whole shebang.
So we have another question from Sarah, Jewish last name. I work
Wait,
in
what?
That's her Instagram handle, Sarah, Jewish last name.
I was like, Leah, unexpected tone from you.
As a person with a Jewish last name, I also kind of really relate to that. And I work in a cemetery. Do you have recs for witchy things I could do? Ooh.
Oh my gosh, go to work.
First off, what a cool job. That must be so much fun.
Does they mean things they can do at the cemetery or just like in general?
I don't know. They did not specify, but
I feel like maybe at the cemetery.
I kind of read it as at the cemetery.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to do some witchy things at the cemetery. What are we going to do?
I think it would be pretty neat to like not look for any particular headstone, but just follow your intuition to where you're feeling called to walk, and then have a bit of a conversation with whoever you end up stopping in front of, and maybe even like research them, learn about them, and then bring them a little, offering.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that.
It's like my Libra vibes. I'm like, make a friend, make a ghost friend.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm just going to go with that answer.
Yeah, I like that too. I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know. Y'all are being pretty PG. You could also
I'm also kind of like, I don't know. It could be really fun to like summon some spirits. Yeah. I've enjoyed a Ouija board in my time. What would happen if you do that at a cemetery?
Well, I mean, be ready, be grounded, be prepared. Also, just like, what about a little like, this is kind of illegal to recommend, but like a little bit of solo sex out there. It's nighttime.
I mean, maybe not on the job, maybe when you get off.
Not on the job.
We're definitely suggesting some interesting things. But I also think that it would be lovely to leave community offerings at the cemetery. That's really beautiful. And I'm sure there are certain tombstones that don't get a lot of love anymore.
Yeah.
So sharing some love for the spirits who maybe have a whole family that have passed. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Let's stick with the PG vibes, the not illegal, not unethical vibes.
So we have an anonymous question.
Ooh.
Any sort of special sex magic for Samhain? We've definitely shared some fun ones. I really love, Bella, what you said about bringing in spirits and deities into your sex magic, something that I love to do on a day-to-day basis. But I feel as though you can really heighten the ritualistic elements for Samhain, having specific candles, having, using certain herbs. I would drink mugwort tea because mugwort invokes lucid dreaming and is a little bit consciousness shifting. So if you wanted to enter a state of shifted consciousness while you're engaging in sex magic, that could be really fun. And then to bring in a spirit. Also, how fun would it be if you have a partner that you have sex with, and then you also invoke a spirit to join you, and then you have like a threesome?
Very hot.
Yeah.
Very hot.
Very hot. I like that a lot. That's very hot.
It sounds like a porn I should make. My threesome with the devil.
Yes, invite in Hades. One of the things that I really like doing around Samhain, sex magic wise, is working with duality, working with the energies of duality. So there's a lot of ways you can explore that, both like within your own self, your interior landscape, or with partners. But if you have a partner to play with and do some sex magic with, it's really fun around Samhain to explore opposites. So you might want to really feel into like your maiden energy, your Persephone vibes. And you might want to have your partner play with their more evil kind of Hades vibes or vice versa. That's really something really fun to play with. And you can also do that for solo sex magic. Like, let's say you're trying to shift or heal something within yourself. Like, I've been working a lot on my decision-making skills because I can be very indecisive. So working with your indecisive energy as like an erotic persona, and then working on exploring and kind of unraveling who is the decisive version within you and how can I play with them and how do they dress and eat and fuck differently to me.
I would say the only thing to add on would be you were talking about different like herbs and stuff that you can kind of incorporate into rituals. If you want to work with some crystals, I have some crystal recommendations. Obviously, labradorite, just because it's such a great stone for introspection and divination and tapping into your unique magic without fear. So that one, and then definitely celestite and angelite too. They're really great for communicating with ancestors and spirit guides and just connecting with the spiritual realm in general.
Also, speaking of crystals, we do have a discount code for chakrams. And so maybe one of their obsidian crystal dildos would be a really fun way to...
Especially their root plug, their obsidian root plug, because your root chakra really speaks to like your shadows and your unconscious. And that would be super good for Samhain.
Amazing. Yeah. And we'll put that promo code link in the show notes if you are intrigued. So we have a final question, which is, what's your favorite way to honor the death and sleep around you? Which is from Mrs. Osborne, who we know, Chrissy. Love her.
Love Chrissy. What is your favorite way to honor the death, sleep around you? I mean, my answer is sort of a bit previous of how I work with my ancestors but I'll think more on that while I hear what you two have.
Well, I love me some glamour magic and I love dressing up for anything. So I like to dress in mourning to honor the death around me, but I like to do it in style, my Leo moon. Maybe pair it with a bit of black lipstick and black nail polish and black boots. And yeah, it does it for me.
Memento mori, baby. Death is still something I fear. And I think that a way that I like to honor death and connect with death is really simple in that meditation, stillness, and a way that I really like to go deep and shift my actual brain waves is to connect with certain plant spirits that help me get there. So there are consciousness shifting herbs that aren't psychedelic that I like to work with. I'm not super into psychedelics. So I like to connect with Egyptian blue lotus. I like to connect with kava, and it really helps me ground into a very quiet, deep meditative part of myself. And I can connect with the spirit realm. I can connect with the liminal realms, and I can connect with the energy of death when I shift my brain waves into that really like calm, regenerative, deep state. So that's my favorite way.
Ooh, another way, like I was just feeling into the sleep one part of this question from Chrissy. I like to take all of December off of work and go into sort of a bit of a hibernation phase, not even sometimes physically, sometimes always emotionally, and sometimes physically too, because I think it's important to kind of disentangle ourselves from the matrix and the constant like hustle energy of work. And cats are great teachers of that. And just really like, yeah, that really helps me, even though every year I'm like, but I could be making money. But that's the whole point of it. It's how I connect with my sleep energy.
That's beautiful. Yes, I'm so looking forward to this descent into winter and darkness and just like really deep regeneration. It's going to be so lovely. Well, this is our Samhain special. I hope you all have enjoyed. And share with us how you're going to be celebrating Samhain on our social media, or if you want to join our Discord where we have a little coven community, we can chat about it. And happy Samhain, lovers.
Yeah, happy Samhain.
The Sex Magic Podcast is more than just a podcast. We are a collective, a community, a conversation. If what we do here resonates with you, I'd like to invite you to join us on Patreon. But what even is Patreon? It's an online platform where you can directly support artists and creators. In exchange, you receive exclusive benefits. It's a direct form of energetic exchange. If you'd like to join us on Patreon, we have some incredible monthly benefits, such as live Q&As where you can ask us questions every month and tune in to get them all answered. We also have an incredible Discord community where you can connect with other people around the world and talk about things within the realm of sexuality and spirituality, along with monthly resources, rituals, tarot insight, and crystal guides to help further your spiritual path. So if you'd like to support us and show us how much you appreciate the work that we do with the Sex Magic Podcast, I invite you to check out our Patreon. We have the link down in the show notes, but you can also go on patreon.com/sexmagicpodcast.